What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today, we'll be chatting with John Karalis from Locked On Celtics to figure out how the Celtics move forward in the aftermath of Ime Udoka's suspension for the 2022-2023 NBA season. Plus, what does it mean missing Robert Williams for the first 8 to 12 weeks of the season? We're going to get there after a quick message from our friends over at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your football betting and info this season. Find out the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every single game that you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all of your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every single sport out there. That's right, they've got you covered for MLB postseason. NBA is right around the corner. They've got you for all your fighting odds, UFC, MMA, boxing, you name it. They've got you covered over at BetOnline. Right now, you can run over to BetOnline to take a look at who the odds-on favorites are for the NBA championship this season. Right now, the Golden State Warriors now leading the pack at plus 575 after all the drama with the Boston Celtics, who are still in second place at plus 600. You got the Milwaukee Bucks in third at plus 700, and then rounding out the top five favorites, you got the Brooklyn Nets and the LA Clippers at plus 750 apiece. So for all of that and more odds, head over to BetOnline to learn more about the trends in action available to you. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Joining us now is John Karalis from Locked On Celtics and Locked On NBA. You can follow on Twitter at John_Karalis. John, Ime Udoka, fresh off of a finals trip as a rookie head coach, suspended for the 2022-2023 season, with the Celtics citing that Udoka had an intimate relationship with a female member of the franchise's staff. This is like a completely unprecedented situation to have a head coach, a sitting head coach, suspended for an entire season. Just on the surface, how big of a blow is this to the Celtics fresh off of a finals trip, right? It seemed like at the beginning of the offseason, everything was going the Celtics' favor, right? They added Gallinari and Brogdon to a team, coming off of the finals appearance, and now it just seems like there's a lot of stuff going downhill very, very quickly for the Celtics organization.
September has not been kind to the Celtics at all. This is a big blow for sure. I don't know how much it sets them back, but it's, we're right around the corner from the season. They start practice on Tuesday officially. And so to have this happen the week before, maybe players were given a little bit more of a heads up, but there still wasn't a lot of lead time with this. And I assume that Ime was in on the planning for the season, and they were starting to get their whole kind of timeline together of this is what we want to work on in these first couple of weeks, and this is how we want things to go. And now all of a sudden he's gone. And so a guy that they've built trust with, that they fought for, is all of a sudden out. And I don't know how the guys are going to feel. I don't know if it's going to go all the way to like some level of betrayal, but they were in a culture of discipline and accountability. And it seems like throughout the course of that culture of discipline and accountability, here was a guy who was doing things behind the scenes that violated team rules. And that to me was one of the bigger things from a player standpoint. Like, how can you be off doing all of this stuff, getting yourself into trouble when we're the ones, when we did something wrong, you came down on us that hard. So I think there's just a lot of confusion, and it's going to take a little time for the emotions to subside and for them to get into the business of playing basketball.
It definitely feels like something that has the potential, unfortunately, to kind of fracture almost this team identity, right, of culture and accountability, something that was harvested and grown by Ime Udoka last season, a guy who, again, oversaw, progress in the development, the games of guys like Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart, guys who took, significant strides forward last year under Ime Udoka, especially after buying in and kind of going through the growing pains and getting to that, not quite ultimate mountaintop, right? Didn't win the title, but right there at the finals, knocking on the door. And when you look at the situation, John, is it kind of a thing where you think Udoka's gone for good, and this is maybe the suspension is just kind of a way to save face a little bit, maybe let him step down at a later time. Because I mean, the Celtics, they threw the book at him.
Yeah, I think we have to understand there's probably a legal process that's happening at the same time as this. And so coming out right away and firing him right away was probably not advisable. I have a hard time believing that he's going to be back in the organization. I don't think that that's very likely. But for now, at least he is under suspension. So there is a universe where that does happen. I just doubt it. I feel like the year suspension, which comes with what was deemed a hefty financial penalty when it's all netted out, is how it was told to us. When you factor all that in, there's a stern punishment, and I think from there you can figure out how to properly move on and give Ime some severance, contractually they owe him. But I just doubt, I don't see him coming back after this.
Now, it may not mean that Udoka's head coaching days are completely done at the NBA level, but at least, as far as the Celtics organization is concerned, it does not look good.
There's going to have to be some process of redemption, some rehabilitation of his image. He's going to have to sit down with Oprah or something and do an interview in a couple of years and then start getting himself back into the good graces. He's going to have to publicly fall on the sword and say he's learned lessons and all of that stuff.
The Oprah Winfrey Ime Udoka tell-all interview. My goodness. Only here at Locked On NBA can you find that hard-hitting analysis. But John, when we look at how this Celtics team moves forward out of this situation, right? Joe Mazzulla. Mm-hmm. First off, who is Joe Mazzulla? What does he bring to the table for this Celtics team? The guy being tapped to be the interim head coach now in the absence of Ime Udoka.
Yeah, he's a young guy. He's 34. Local guy, grew up in Rhode Island, so kind of has some roots here in New England. He has been around. He's one of the Brad Stevens hires, so he's been around for a few years. Interesting that Brad went with one of his hires and not one of Ime's hires. Just kind of makes you think that maybe the rest of that coaching staff is going to be on its way out as well when they hire a new coach. So, but Joe Mazzulla is I'd say respected within the organization. He's always been just kind of a quiet, head down kind of guy. He coached their summer league team for a season, and he's not much to know about him other than I think he just buys into what the Celtics have been trying to do, defense and trying to run a sound offense. So, but defense first. So, yeah, I think this is going to be an audition for him. He was a finalist for the Utah job, so it's not great circumstances at all. You want to have more time to plan, but he was a finalist in Utah for a reason. He's a young up and coming assistant coach, and now he gets a sudden opportunity to show what he's got.
Funnily enough, Will Hardy, who did win the position in Utah, is also 34 years of age. So they're actually both tied for being the two youngest head coaches in the association. Now, found that out a little bit earlier today. But I mean, is the expectation, is Mazzulla going to talk at media day, John? Is he kind of just get trial by fire thrown in and have to answer questions?
I would expect that. I mean, media day is Monday, so my expectation for media day is going to be whenever the Ime stuff comes up. Every chance they get to say that's been handled by the front office, we're just playing basketball. I think that's going to be the go-to deflect. But Joe is the interim head coach. Monday is media day. He's going to have to talk to us at some point. Might as well get your feet wet with everybody now. So yeah, I think he's going to be out there. The player's going to be out there. I don't know how much we're going to get as far as reaction, but everybody should be slated to talk.
Last thing for you here, John. Robert Williams, who's a huge part of what the Celtics want to do, have achieved, and want to accomplish in the future, out for the next 8 to 12 weeks after left knee surgery, the same knee that he had surgery on back March 30th. how, in addition to everything that's going on with Udoka, you lose your head coach. How, you have another blow to the Celtics, losing effectively your starting center probably until well after Christmas time, more or less. If he's
Somewhere
out the max 12 weeks, somewhere around there. I mean, what's the expectation? Who steps in Robert Williams' absence, and how big of a hit is this to the Celtics to really get off on kind of some shaky footing to start the season?
So you mentioned before you had the Gallo thing, and you're like, okay, he's still probably the 7th or 8th man, so you can deal with that. The initial diagnosis with Rob, the reporting was 4 to 6 weeks. So I thought, okay, no problem. 4 to 6 weeks, you're only going to miss a week or two of the regular season, not a big deal. 8 to 12 is a big deal because it's not just 8 to 12 weeks of recovery. He has to ramp up, and you have to take it slowly with him. So yeah, I'm saying maybe by Christmas it might be when we see him. And that's a long time. We can say that's when the season effectively starts, but the season actually starts in a few weeks. And now you're going to have Luke Cornett and Noah Vonleh potentially. Not exactly the names that you're hoping for in these positions. The Celtics put themselves in this spot where they're saying, hey, Luke Cornett's going to be our third big. And okay, that's fine for a third big. What's going to happen when you need to go get more? Well, we're going to find out. We're going to find out if their two-way guy, Fiondo Kabengele, is going to get an opportunity. Look good in Summer League, but we know what Summer League means in the regular season. Barely anything. But he's the guy who most closely resembles Robert Williams as far as style. He's a rim runner. He's a lob catcher. He's a shot blocker. Not nearly as good as Robert Williams, but you get to see if that style, his style, fits in, and the Celtics can continue to do what they've been doing stylistically without having to completely change what they've been running. So there's some possibility. Again, there's some timeline that says these guys are good enough to cobble together 25 minutes a game, and you're going to lean on Grant Williams to play a little bit more small ball, or you try some super small lineups where you don't even have a big in there. So that's where Malcolm Brogdon comes in, and you just try versatile, switchy, super small. None of these solutions are particularly great, though.
Yeah, none of them sound fantastic. Suddenly you're missing Daniel Tice a little bit. Maybe you're like, oh, suddenly, like, well.
Yeah. I can't imagine a team having a worse season without having played a single game.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, it's like you said in the very beginning, right? September has not been kind to the Celtics, but what does Boston look like in the aftermath of the Ime Udoka situation? How impactful will losing Robert Williams to start the season be for the Celtics? You're going to have us covered for all of that and more over at Locked On Celtics. John, I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
My pleasure, man.